It's the GCN Racing News Show. We've had an incredibly busy week of racing with the Tours of Oman, Algarve, Andalucía, Haut Var, Valenciana, and then the UAE Tour just starting with some incredible speeds. I also got a heap of amazing stats, plus news of the Tour de France Grand Départ in 2021. Let's start though with the Tour of Oman, where Alexei Lutsenko romped to the overall victory, making it back-to-back wins at that race for him. This year though, he was particularly dominant, winning 3 of the 6 stages, including the Queen stage up Green Mountain. Now on to the first of our many stats today, many of which in fact come from Amati Purali over on Twitter. So for his second stage win, Lutsenko averaged 666 watts for 50 seconds to ride everybody off his wheel. That at the end of what had already been a tough day in the saddle. The final day ended up in a bunt sprint, which was won by Giacomo Nizzolo of Team Dimension Data, his first win for over a year. However, there were a few riders who were less than impressed by this move from Direct Energy's Nicolo Bonifacio, who swerved rather wildly from left to right, almost taking out Nasser Bouhanni in the process. Bouhanni himself, as well as Andre Greipel, were amongst those to voice their disapproval, although no further action was taken by the race commissaires. A handful of riders then went straight from Oman to the inaugural UAE Tour, which combines the previous tours of Abu Dhabi and Dubai to form a 7-day race, which includes 2 mountaintop finishes. Things kicked off yesterday though with a 16-kilometre team time trial, with Jumbo-Visma taking the spoils with a brilliant performance. They averaged over 57 kilometres per hour over those 16Ks to trump Team Sunweb by 7 seconds and put Primož Roglic into the race lead. What was really incredible to see though was over on Velon, the fact that they averaged 64 kilometres per hour over the last 5Ks. Which really is mind-blowing. I mean, I actually rode my bike outdoors at the weekend and my maximum speed was less than that, even though some of my intervals ended up being on a downhill. Anyway, in 14 years as a pro, that was in fact the first TTT win for Paul Martins, who was understandably rather chuffed with the result. Team Dimension Data would finish up in 10th place on the day, but they weren't helped by a puncture from Roman Kreuziger, victim to a nail picked up on the course. Now, as I record this, Stage 2 is in progress and it's likely to be a fight amongst the sprinters with some crosswind action thrown in for good measure. Make sure you head over to Facebook for our daily highlights. There you'll be able to see the likes of Kittel, Cavendish, Ewan, Viviani, Gaviria, Christoph and Bennett all fighting it out for the win. Down to Portugal now for the Volta Algarve, where we had our youngest ever winner. Team UAE Emirates Tadej Pogacar won the Tour de l'Avenir last year and soon after signed his first pro contract. And now in only his 3rd race as a pro, he's already won. Age? 20 years and 156 days, which also, according to Amati Purali, made him the youngest winner of any stage race at this level since Bernardo Ruiz won the Volta Catalunya in 1945. And in winning the hilltop finish of Stage 2, he also entered the top 10 of the youngest riders to win a stage of a race of HC level or above. Here's that table from Cycling Visualizations. I'm no scout, but that guy's got talent. As has Fabio Jakobsen of De Koning Quickstep, the neo-pro with the most wins last year, took his first win of the year at his first race day of the year, taking Stage 1 in what was a reduced bunt sprint after a huge pile-up with around 10Ks to go. Amongst those involved were Lars Bak of Team Dimension Data, who would go on to finish the rest of the race, even though his leg looked like this. I also wanted to give a special mention to another De Koning rider, Tim de Klerk. Now, he's normally a man who brings back the breakaways, but on the final day, he was in the breakaway, and in doing so also picked up the King of the Mountains jersey, therefore making a rare visit to the podium at the end of the race, so rare that it took him a while to figure out how to put the jersey on. I have to say, I do love seeing a rider who works almost entirely for others get their own glory. Also, good to see his teammate Zdenek Stybar take the win on that final stage. That was his first win since the National Championships in 2017. In France, we had the Tour de Haut Var. The opening stage there saw the first win in a couple of years for Sepp van Mark of EF Education First. I have to say, he's been looking very sharp to me so far this season, so watch out for him at the upcoming Cobbled Classics. The overall, though, went to Thibaut Pinot, who took second on Stage 2 behind Giulio Ciccone before going on to win the final stage. That's his 30th pro win for FDJ, not half bad for a climber, and his 7th overall win in a stage race. Meanwhile, down in Spain, we had the Vuelta Andalucía, also known as the Ruta Del Sol, a race won last year by Tim Wellens, and he got his defence off to the best possible start by winning the opening stage and backing that up with a win on the time trial on Stage 3. Now, he's apparently been working a lot on his time trial bike over the winter, and that's clearly paid off. That's in fact his first pro win in that discipline. However, he wasn't able to compete with the pure climbers on the Queen stage. Simon Yates looked commanding as he took his first win of the year on Stage 4, but it was Jakob Fuglsang who went on to take the race lead. A lead which he kept on the final day, won in the bunch sprint by Matteo Trentin, and in fact it would be an Astana 1-2 on the general classification, with Jonas Aguirre finishing runner-up. Now that means that Team Astana have won all 6 stage races they've done so far this year, 6 GC wins in 15 days. Incredible in itself, but even more so when you consider another stat from Amati Purali that it took them 713 days to win their previous 6. They really are on fire at the moment, and you all know what that means. So, of the World Tour teams, it's now only AG2R and Sunweb that are yet to get their first win of the season. Now, speaking of current teams having a string of successes, how about the newly formed Trek Segafredo women's team over at the Setmana Ciclista Valenciana? They won 3 of the 4 stages there, American Ruth Winder taking the opening stage, and I particularly enjoyed this tweet that she put up just after that. Then Finnish champion Lotta Lepisto the second and final stage in bunch sprints. Stage 3 though was the one that got away, and since that was also the stage that would decide the GC, they lost out on that too. So, well done Clara Koppenberg. The 23-year-old German from WNT Rota Pro Cycling crushed the 3rd stage to Castalla, putting almost a minute into her closest rival, Ashley Moolman-Pasio. On the final climb of Tourette de Cati, she had a VAM of 1,624 metres an hour, giving it the 37th best time of everyone on that Strava segment. That performance was more than enough for her to also win the overall classification, and what a way to take your first 2 victories as a pro rider. Congratulations to you. Now, our last live cyclocross race of the year was on Saturday at the Soudal Classic in Leuven, where in the absence of Van der Poel and Van Aert, we actually had a proper tussle in the men's race. Toon Aerts eventually getting the better of Tom Meusen and Lars van der Haar, whilst in the women's it was Denise Betsema ending a stellar season with a win there. Now, before we move on, I'd like to thank you all for your support over the cyclocross season. We've been absolutely delighted to bring you so much coverage and get so much positive feedback, and we've already got plans to make things bigger and better for next season. Now, the following day in Oostmalle marked the end of a very long and successful career for Helen Wyman, who's now going to hang up her wheels to concentrate on other aspects of cyclocross from the other side of the fence. Wyman was a dominant force in UK cyclocross for many, many years. Along the way, she won the national title on 10 occasions and the European Championships twice. You may also have heard her commentating here on GCN on a few cross races over the last few weeks, and we very much hope you'll be hearing more of her expertise next season. In fact, here she is chatting to Marty on Saturday.
I'm actually feeling okay with it. I've known that I've been retiring since around Christmas time, so it's something which I've had time to come to terms with. And, you know, I've not been sad about my decision until I wrote the retirement letter, and then I read it out loud to Steph, and then I cried and I was like, okay. But I was more happiness because of I was saying how proud I was of everything I'd achieved and how much I'd given to my sport and how much I'd given to be a professional bike racer, and that was more why it was like, yeah, I did that, and I really am genuinely proud of what I've achieved in my career, both on and off the bike.
Congratulations, Helen. I look forward to having you back on GCN very soon. Now, according to reports in Danish media, the Tour de France Grand Départ will be in Copenhagen in 2021, starting with a 13k time trial, then 2 road stages after that, which will obviously be reasonably flat, then a rest day before the race resumes down in France. We'd like to finish this week by saying a big get well soon to Ben Swift. He had a nasty crash whilst training in Tenerife with Geraint Thomas last week and ended up in intensive care. Thankfully, he's been transferred out of that ward now. We wish him all the best though in his recovery. Right, that's all for this week. Next week I'll be back with the remainder of the UAE Tour. Don't forget we've got those daily highlights over on our Facebook page. We'll also be back with the action from the opening weekend in Belgium with Omloop Het Nieuwsblad and Kuurne Brussels Kuurne. The cobbles are coming and I for one cannot wait. In fact, let us know who you're picking for the win on Saturday. I'm personally going to plump for former winner Sepp van Mark. Before that, Ollie recently went to see the guys at Who What Bike in Barbados. They're upsetting the apple cart slightly on the track endurance racing right now. Their story, I have to say, is absolutely fascinating and well worth a watch, and you can find it just down here.